And it is honestly easier for the average everyday person who's not a lawyer or not connected to this industry to pick the wrong attorney than it is the right attorney. And whether, I don't care whether it was a criminal lawyer or a divorce lawyer or a family lawyer or an estate lawyer or a personal injury lawyer or a truck accident lawyer like myself. When you get the wrong attorney, you honestly don't get justice. You don't get the justice the way it's designed to be.
I'm attorney Dave Craig, managing partner and one of the founders of the law firm of Craig, Kelly & Fawlist. I've represented people who have been seriously injured or who have had a family member killed in a semi or other big truck wreck for over 30 years. Following the wreck, their lives are chaos. Often they don't even know enough about the process to ask the right questions. It is my goal to empower you by providing you with the information you need to protect yourself and your family. In each and every episode, I will interview top experts and professionals that are involved in truck wreck cases.
In the Ask David episodes of After the Crash, we switch things up. Instead of me asking questions, I answer the questions. Nothing's off limits, and they ask me about truck safety, about truck accidents, about semi-truck litigation, about commercial motor vehicle wrecks. You name it, I talk about it.
This is After the Crash.
Well, David, I'd like to welcome you to your podcast. This is a very unique experience, having the opportunity really to ask you the questions. And what I've done, David, is put together a series of questions that I am very curious at. I want to know the answers, and I'm sure our audience would like to know that as well. So if you'd like, let's get going.
All right, Harlan. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I look forward to tough questions.
Well, let me start off with a warm-up. But I do want to know, how long have you been practicing law?
So I've been practicing for over 38 years. Since 1985 is when I got sworn in.
Oh, it's a little older than we are. Yeah, that's a long time. I can imagine the experience that you've gathered. In the 38 years that you've been practicing, just tell me in your own words, how have you seen the practice of law change? And let's narrow that down to the last 10 years.
Well, so I've been practicing for quite a while, since 1985, like I said, and it has changed dramatically in the marketing of the business. The law firm, the law business, as you know better than anybody, has developed and has evolved through the marketing. And so we start back at the Bates decision, where it suddenly but before Bates, you didn't have any, you had people just giving business cards. The market was attorneys. If you were an established big law firm, old law firm, on the courthouse square, you got all the business in the county, and nobody could compete against you because nobody knew about you. The only people they knew were the existing old time firms. And so that's why they were against legal advertising. And so when it gradually changed, once that decision came down and the United States Supreme Court said it was protected communications and that lawyers could advertise. And then it was gradual. You start seeing television. But today, in the last 10 years, I swear you're flooded with marketing, all types of marketing. Advertising is part of it, but all types of marketing. It has flooded the market. And probably the biggest change I've seen in just the last couple years is the venture capital money that has poured into this profession. And venture capital, for those people who don't know, is like these folks that have a ton of money and they invest it in businesses. And some of the businesses they're investing in are what I would call lead generation companies. And these are companies just designed to go out and get business, get cases, and then sell them to lawyers. And when I first started practice, you didn't have that. You did not have venture capital investing in marketing companies, trying to get leads to sell back to lawyers. So that's probably the biggest change I've seen. But overall, it's just how aggressive the marketing has gotten over the years.
I've got a series of questions here, and I'm going to get to, some things in regards to choosing, a lawyer. I read your first book. Your first book was outstanding, and it was outstanding to me and the people that picked the book up because it had solid content. One of the things that I'm so attracted to with you is you're a giver. You give far more than you take, and you subscribe to the policy or the practice that if you give more, you'll get more. But you unselfishly give, and that's probably the biggest marketing tool that you have because you're willing to give. But you just wrote a book. It's never been easier to hire the wrong attorney. A pretty provocative cover. What do you mean by that? It's a little confusing because people always want to do the right thing. Make it easy. Tell me how I hire a lawyer, but what to avoid. Why did you come up with that title, and what does it really mean?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm pretty proud of is on the cover. It's kind of subtle, but you notice how it says it's never been easier to hire the wrong attorney, and then you see the scales of justice marked out, and that's what happens, in my opinion, when you pick the wrong attorney, is you no longer get justice. And so now I was kind of controversial. My partner didn't like that. He's like, no, don't scribble out the scales of justice. And I said, well, but that's exactly what happens. When you get the wrong attorney, you honestly don't get justice. You don't get the justice the way it's designed to be. And I don't care whether it was a criminal lawyer or a divorce lawyer or a family lawyer or an estate lawyer or a personal injury lawyer or a truck accident lawyer like myself. If you pick the wrong attorney, then you may not get justice. And that's why I wrote the book. And that's why the title was that, I got to thinking about it. And it is honestly easier for the average everyday person who's not a lawyer or not connected to this industry to pick the wrong attorney than it is the right attorney. And, the bigger and more important the decision is, the more important the need for a lawyer is, the more important it is that you pick the right attorney. But you are bombarded, and it is so much easier just to pick the wrong one because of how much bombardment there is of lawyer marketing.
Is that, or why did you choose today, right now, to attack that subject in your book? And I'm certainly asking you this question on your podcast.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I think that it's getting really bad. It's extraordinary bad. And I see it as a truck accident attorney. I've seen lawyers represent folks, and everybody claims that they are a truck accident attorney. But I know that a lot of the folks that are advertising or marketing it have not handled very many, if any, truck accident cases. They've not probably taken any to trial. They don't know the nuances of truck accident law. And so I see that, and everybody takes those cases because they look at them and they think they're lucrative. And they may be lucrative in the sense of the fee, but they're catastrophic to the client. And so I've seen clients where, by picking the wrong lawyer, by calling the wrong lawyer, they lost tens of millions of dollars that they really needed to take care of their family. And it was getting more and more frustrated. And so I was like, okay, that's what prompted me to sit down and then I saw this, I actually saw it on my ad. So people were advertising, marketing our name. So Craig Kelly and Follis, and people were buying that and advertising above my listing so that people might get confused. And it was confusing because they would list and just say, injured, call this number. And so if you didn't read it carefully, you thought you were calling my firm. And when I dug deeper into it, it was a lead generation company. And so they weren't even lawyers. And then they were going to try to sell those leads to somebody else. And they were marketing our name. And I was just getting frustrated with this whole process. And I was also getting cases from lawyers who couldn't settle. And they would refer to me, they would hold on to the case and the case wouldn't be in great shape. So I thought, you know what? I get asked all the time by people who know me, how do I pick a divorce lawyer or how do I pick an estate lawyer? Do I know somebody? And I thought, well, you know what? The average everyday person doesn't know how to pick an attorney, how to pick a good attorney, the right attorney. So I would write the book. And so I first started off thinking I'd just write it about truck accident law, which is what I know. But then I thought, well, it's really broader than that. because people were picking the wrong divorce lawyers, the wrong criminal lawyers, the wrong estate lawyers as well. So we wrote it specifically, or wrote it generally. But then in the book, I also deal with how to pick the best truck accident attorney if that's what you need.
Yes, chapter 3. If I'm not mistaken, it is just so polluted out there. Sometimes, as you know, I am one of the people or the person that invented lawyer advertising. I never ever expected this to happen. Back in 1978, 79, we thought we hit, we were doing the right thing. And now it's such a polluted market. I'm even confused. I very often will, especially when I'm traveling, I will, looking for travel, I will hit the first button because I'm anxious and I get a lead gen company or somebody else that I'm looking at it and I'm going, wait. And I had that choice. Is it easy just to fill out the form or just find what I'm really looking for? It's a trick society. I think that things have changed so much with the internet and certainly social media and television itself. Do you know,
Well,
we
and
live
I
in,
think, but Harlan, you touched on. I mean, you were one of the grandfathers of legal marketing, but the reality is that it really is a good thing. I mean, I think if people have the information and knowledge on how to go sort through it, it's okay. But actually, I would tell you that the good from legal advertising is better than the bad. So in the grand scheme of things, the awareness, people are so much more aware of their rights than they ever were before you started legal advertising and doing television commercials. People didn't know they could work on a contingency fee, that they had the right to hire a lawyer and they didn't have to pay him till the end. They didn't know that insurance companies didn't treat them fairly all the time. And there was so many things. And then back in the old days, you had general practitioners who were doing a little bit of everything, but just because they happened to be generation after generation after generation, that's who got the cases. And they didn't always know how to handle a big truck case or some other type of complicated estate case or criminal
it
case.
still
So
happens.
yeah, it's still, and so, but it's happening less, and people are more aware of what their rights are. So I think overall, it's a good thing, and I believe people are smart enough that if you give them the information, if you help them, and you tell them here's what you need to know, then people will look and try to figure it out, and they can make that decision on their own.
But
So I'm for advertising, but I just wish people had more information and knew how to sort through it.
well, it would be hypocritical for me to say I'm not for advertising because I built my entire life on advertising. But I do recall the decision. And in fact, Tom Gerald from 2020 interviewed my partner, Norton Fricky, at the time and asked him, well, what's behind this? What do you see? And I'll just end it with this. And he said, we have the opportunity to give the little guy access to the courtroom. And it's taken it, the Supreme Court recognized the good old boys deal, which is kind of what you explained. You were explaining earlier, down the courthouse and what have you. And now everybody has access, and it's a freedom of information opportunity. But you have to do your homework. Hey, so let me ask you, you talk a lot about certification of truck lawyers. What does that actually mean and why?
Yeah, and I think, so I'm board certified in truck accident law. And so what that means is the American Bar Association, which is the oldest group that has been around since almost the beginning of the legal practice, they kind of monitor and are kind of the moral compass of the law, the legal profession. And they generate a rules of ethics that most states follow or have adopted. And so the ABA said, you know what? Gosh, there's board certified doctors. There's a certain group of people out there. There's a certain group of lawyers that are more skilled in particular specific areas. And they're more skilled because they do a large percentage of their practice is in that area. And they spend more time educating themselves in that area. They write and teach and handle cases. And we'll set up a group, excuse me, that can
Bless you.
vet those people and we'll make sure we vet them because we are in this profession. So we know what a good estate lawyer, a good criminal defense lawyer, a good trial lawyer, a good truck accident lawyer, we know what it takes and we know what we're looking for. So they approved these groups that will vet lawyers for specific areas. And so I'm vetted by them and in the area of truck accident laws. And so I'm vetted by the National Board of Trial Advocacy, which is approved by the ABA, and then is approved by the Indiana Supreme Court, where I'm licensed. And so now you've got the Indiana Supreme Court, you've got this group by the ABA, and they all look at it and say, okay, yeah, we agree that these guys are specialists. These men or women are specialists, and they can hold out as board certified in a particular area. And in Indiana, for example, there's only 4 lawyers that are board certified, and 2 of them are at my law firm.
I think the audience would be shocked to know that approximately how many certified trucking lawyers there are in the United States. Now, let me put something in perspective. There's so-called 4,000 lawyers on television alone, advertising. That's the latest statistic. I'm sure all 4,000 of them think that they're trucking lawyers because they hang a shingle out and it says, I do truck cases. Yep. And we're disputing that because of the qualifications that it takes. But how many approximately lawyers there are that are certified in the country?
So the last time I checked, there were less than 80. So there's less than 100, less than 80 board certified truck accident lawyers, and like you said, there's not only the number. There's like over 1.3 million lawyers. And so out of 1.3, there's less than 100 that are board certified. In my state of Indiana, one of the states in which we practice, there's only 4. And you have to go through this whole process. You have to prove that you practice in this area. You have to have lawyers that you've gone up against. You have to have judges that you've been before. You have to show that you've written briefs in that area. You have to take in so many depositions. And then you go in and take a test on top of everything else. And you have to pass a test to be board certified. And so,
but you're judged by your peers, right?
And then you're judged by your peers. But it's not something which is, and I think this is extraordinarily important. It's not something you can buy your way into. I mean, you actually have to show that you have so many hours. Because I have other lawyers in my office that are working towards getting board certified, and they're great lawyers, but they don't have the level of expertise. They haven't done as many hours necessary to qualify as a truck accident. Now, those lawyers in my firm that aren't board certified are better than most personal injury lawyers out there trying to do truck cases because they are trained and knowledgeable, and they go to the training, the education, but they still don't have enough hours in to be vetted and to be approved. So you can have a good lawyer that's not board certified.
Well, yes, you can. We're talking about why you should deal with a lawyer that's board certified. And so what I just heard, if you need a heart replacement, don't go to a general practitioner, go to a certified heart surgeon. Because that makes a lot of sense. I mean, to use the analogy.
Absolutely.
In jumping into your book, chapter 3 was my most exciting. I'd really like to discuss with you how easy it is to pick the wrong lawyer for your case, and how do you fall into that situation? What's the pattern of people? I mean, we're boldly saying it's never been easy to hire the wrong lawyer. How do you fall into that pit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell you what, there's so many different ways that people get there. I mean, sometimes they listen to a friend who knows a lawyer, and they think that lawyer is great. And maybe that lawyer is really good at one area, but maybe they handled their divorce. And they think, oh, hey, I know my lawyer can handle that case. I got a great lawyer. Well, that lawyer may have been great at divorce, but they can't do truck accident law. But they don't. The average person doesn't know. They got a license to practice law, and that license lets you practice any kind of law. There's no limitations. I graduated from law school in 1985, and it says I can do anything. I can practice any kind of law. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want me drafting your will. You don't want me handling your divorce case. You know what? But there are lawyers out there who are doing it all. And so You have to be really careful. So you have to be careful, first of all. Sometimes people mean well and they just give you the name of a lawyer, but that lawyer might be the wrong lawyer. In addition, most people nowadays use the internet. And so you hop on the internet and man, you're just flooded with advertisements. You Google in and you have all these ads ahead of what Google looks at and says, okay, these people are important. You now have AI searches. You have television. My gosh, I don't know how many televisions I see now that are all geared towards truck accident victims. How many billboards you see? There's cars when you go to the Pacer game or a Fever game. There's cars wrapped with lawyers marketing their name and their logos. And so there's billboards inside the stadiums, and so a lot of times people think, I was in St. Louis. I did a focus group in St. Louis, and folks told me they believe that if you have the money to spend on advertising, you must be a good lawyer.
I've heard that many times. I've heard that many, many, many times. What a fallacy it is. I mean, I've seen this, lawyer thing, blossom from its inception, to where it is now. I remember sitting in the barber chair. I go to this particular barber in Scottsdale that everybody goes to. His name is Boris. And there was a lawyer next to me who I kind of know, but I don't know. He knows me. He spends probably 10, 15 million a year in advertising, maybe more. And he was sending his truck cases to another lawyer, a certified lawyer down there. But this case he wasn't going to send to anybody. It was a $5 million ringer for sure, minimum. He was so proud that he was able to settle it for $1.5 million. And my barber, who knows me very well, knows him. It's Rafi. I wasn't going to mention the name. He said, "Well, why are you doing that?" He says, "Why have you cash flow? I have cash flow too, issues too." And I almost sprang out of the chair and strangled the guy. I honestly, David, I didn't because I didn't really want to get arrested. But it was so unethical what I heard. Now, did he break ethics? Not really on paper. Is it ethical? But I do know that in reading that paragraph that you read and I ask everybody to read, to become a lawyer, you will vigorously represent. It tells you exactly what you should do in handling people. That, unfortunately, that never met a lawyer in my life that ever read that after they signed it. But it's amazing because everybody is a truck lawyer. I remember coming to your office and looking at the billboards on the side of the road. Every other one was, big trucks. We take trucks. We do this. And I just can't imagine because I know what's involved. So on the other side of it, what is the best way? How do you recommend? And try to be a little unbiased, which is very hard because I know that you're very proud of what you do and how you do things. I'm very proud to be associated with you because of your ethics and your qualifications and of course your personality. So how do you go about hiring? What do you do to find the right lawyer?
Well, the truth is the ways you would get to me would be the ways you would get to other great lawyers, I think.
Yeah, but how do you read through all the garbage?
Yeah. And I wrote the book for people who are out in California who'll never hire me. But they'll know and learn how to hire the right attorney. And board certification, which we touched on, is the simplest because if you don't know lawyers, if you're not a part of the community, if you don't have buddies that know lawyers, you don't know who's good and who's bad. So the starting place is say, let's go to board certification. Is the area that I'm looking for an area where there's board certification? And if there is, then let's start there. And let's look then at how many are board certified in the state in which I have my truck wreck. Let's say it's a truck accident. And so then they're like in Indiana, I said there are 4. There in some other states there may be 3, 5. Some states have more, and some states have less. So that's where I would start. Then the next thing I would do is that I would actually go on the internet and I would look and then I would research those firms that are board certified. And so if it's criminal law, you're going to find board certified criminal lawyers, state lawyers, divorce lawyers, truck accident lawyers. And then you're going to go on the internet and then you're going to look at their internet and their website. and you're going to look and see, okay, what kind of reviews do they have? How believable are their reviews? Do they seem credible to me? And then, I would look at and say, okay, are they rated by some of I mean, there's so many awards out there that you can just buy. My wife gets an award and she brings it in and she'll the wife's not a lawyer. And they'll say, her name's Dana. And I said, Dana, congratulations. You've been selected as one of the top lawyers in the state. And she's like, look, Dave, I'm one of the top lawyers and I'm not even a lawyer. And all you have to do is send me a check for $350 and we'll send you a plaque. Well, there are a lot of those out there, and the average everyday person doesn't know which ones are bought and paid for and which ones aren't. And so I would look at some of the ones. Martindale Hubbell's been around forever. AV Preeminent is the highest rankings you can get. I would look and see, okay, are they AV Preeminent rated? I would look at Super Lawyers. Super Lawyers is a little more controversial, but it's something that is peer reviewed and it's by state. I would look at AVO. I would look at what kind of awards. I would look and see do they teach? Do they lecture? Do they teach other lawyers? Because if they're teaching other lawyers, the odds are they know more than the people that are sitting in the audience. But those people sitting in the audience, I guarantee you, they have billboards and ads saying that they can do this stuff. And so I would look to the people who write, who teach, who help others. And then I think is probably one of the most important things after I narrowed it down that I would ask to meet and interview those folks. And I don't think you should narrow it down to one law firm. I would narrow it down to two or three. And that's kind of inconsistent if you say, okay, well, David would like to be your lawyer. Why would he encourage you to go and interview other lawyers? Well, I think that's important because I think you should go meet the people that if it's a catastrophic semi-wreck, if it's a wrongful death, or if somebody in your family's paralyzed or, not going to be able to work or whatever, then it's going to take a while to get through the process. You're going to spend a lot of time with a lawyer. So who is the lawyer? What type of person is the lawyer? Is she or he somebody that I want to spend time with the next several years with? How honest and straightforward are they? I would talk to them about, do you try cases? Because if a lawyer doesn't ever go to trial, it's going to be tough for that lawyer to get you a fair settlement. If that lawyer can say, yeah, no, I have tried cases, ask them, have you ever tried a case like mine? Have you ever handled one like mine? And I would talk to them about that. How did you do? And so I would interview them, but I would not only interview the lawyer that's the one that I found, but I would say, well, who's the team behind you? Because
that's interesting.
Because there's not.
Because all you mostly see is the lawyer pounding his chest and call me, and then you never even see him.
I had a client once tell me, say, Mr. Craig, I want to make sure you're the lawyer who's working on my case and doing everything. And I said, well, that would be a really bad idea because I would do terrible at certain things. The last time I wrote a brief, there was a misspelling in the caption. And I said, now, do you want a guy who misspells the caption, filing your brief, doing the research? No. Now, do you want me talking to the jury? Do you want me helping strategy? Do you want me out there looking at the inspection? Do you want me helping preserve evidence? Absolutely. But do you want me doing research and briefs and summary judgment motions and arguing in front of judges? No. And so you have an entire team behind you, and you should. And I would want to know. I just had a case. It was a sad case where someone was killed, and the people had read my book, and so they were interviewing 3 law firms, and I happened to be one of the ones they were reading or interviewing, and they didn't bring their books with them, but they were asking me the questions that are in my book, and I'm like, well, those are really good questions. Where did you get those? And they said, well, they should be because they're from your book. And I introduced them to the entire team, and in that team, when I represent somebody for a semi-truck wreck, that's a catastrophic or wrongful death case, that team consists of 3 to 4 lawyers, including myself, a rapid response team, which is a private investigator, and then Clint, who's been with me for over 20 years. It involves a paralegal. It involves a manager of a paralegal. And so you have all these different people. I have a woman with a social worker's degree, who all she does is help coordinate and communicate with you. And so I have this team of 5 to 10 people and you meet every one of them. And that way you know who you're dealing with. And I also tell people, like, what happens if I'm in trial? If you have one lawyer, the lawyer who beats their chest, says how awesome they are, and that lawyer happens to be in trial, or that lawyer's sick, or that lawyer's on vacation, your file sits there. If you're my client, your file never sits. I may be in trial, but your file is still getting worked on by a whole team of people. And that's probably the most important thing, I think, is the interview process. I can tell you honestly, I've never lost a client that has interviewed me. And I'm very blessed and very fortunate to be able to say that. But I think that there are a lot of lawyers out there who beat their chest and say, well, you should be grateful to have me as your lawyer. I am the best. And I look at it and say, and I tell people, I am very grateful and thankful to have the opportunity, if I get that, to represent you and your family. And it's a subtle difference, but to me, it's a huge difference. And for me, I want the person who's appreciative of having me as a client versus the person who makes me feel like they should be grateful to have me as their lawyer.
You have taught me a lot over the years. And one of the things that I'll never, ever forget is you made a statement. And by golly, I can back that up because you'll outwork anyone. And you said to me, nobody will outwork me. And that was quite some time ago. And I think I asked you, what's your competitive edge? I thought it was your good looks, but you said it was, nobody's going to outwork me or my team. So much of the advertising for lawyer business these days, almost the majority of it, believe it or not, is, work less, make more money. Work less, make more money. And, look, I'm an old school guy. I grew up, just like you, putting my pants on, going to work every day. I'm still working, as you know. And that doesn't make sense to me. I know that if you want to build a business or you want to win a case or you want to win, in the NFL or any sports, you got to work your ass off. And so this whole thing, with all of these new features such as AI and blah, 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 it's not designed to work less. It's designed to work better. And it just confuses me. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with legal right now. I've always said 90% of the lawyers out there, are not, I've got to refrain myself right now. 90% of the lawyers, I usually say suck. And of course I give a reason why. I want to come back to something. The other thing that you said that really resonates with me is if you don't prepare for trial, you're not prepared for settlement. I paraphrase that, but that's in essence what you said. So, David, this has been an honor for me. I've always wanted to do an interview, and I had the chance to interview somebody I really, really respect.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Harlan, to be on here and take the time to interview. I know your time is very valuable, and I appreciate it. So, thank you so much for being on After the Crash, the Ask David version.
This is David Craig, and you've been listening to After the Crash. If you'd like more information about me or my law firm, please go to our website, ckflaw.com. Or if you'd like to talk to me, you can call 1-800-ASK-DAVID. If you would like a guide on what to do after a truck wreck, then pick up my book, Semi-Truck Wreck, a guide for victims and their families, which is available on Amazon, or you can download it for free on our website, ckflaw.com.